never said I oppose fracking. Show the tape. Put it on your website. Put it on the website.
Live from Clark Studios in Rochester, New York. Broadcasting around the world. You're listening to You Made It Political, where the voice of the keyboard warrior is finally heard and the arguments presented are put to the political test. And now, here's your host, Matt Clark.
Welcome to the show, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me here tonight, Christmas Eve. It's finally here. 2020 has been nothing but complete chaos, complete and utter disappointment, but at least we finally have Christmas or Hanukkah or whatever holiday that you celebrate. And the first thing I'd like to do by starting off the show tonight is say happy holidays to you all. I hope no matter what you're doing, that you're with family, that you're taking this time to reflect, and just remember that out of all the chaos, out of all the disruption, out of all the pain that we have suffered this year, that at least we have our family. And if we have that, then the year wasn't a total bust, right? That's the only thing that matters at the end of the day, is that we have a roof over our head, we have our family to celebrate this wonderful holiday with. So happy holidays to everybody, and I hope you guys enjoy a great time with your families, whether it's virtually or in person. We start today's show with Buffalo, New York, upstate New York, making massive headlines. Huge win for Buffalo. And no, I'm not talking about the Buffalo Bills game last week. I'm talking about the lawsuit that was won against Governor Cuomo. Small businesses are now attacking back. They're fighting for their rights. It's been unconstitutional the way that we have locked them all down. And a small little gym in Buffalo, New York has finally won a massive Supreme Court case against the state of New York, and they are now allowed to open back up. Imagine that. Imagine what happens, people, when you actually fight back. In America, democracy will always prevail if we stand together and we fight, and that's exactly what happened with the little small gym in Buffalo, New York. If there ever wasn't a story of the little engine that could, it's this little Buffalo gym that has fought back, and they are now allowed to stay open. Let's head back over to the Keyboard Warrior Cam. Today, we're going to go on my news feed, and we're going to take a look at what residents of Buffalo and New York have to say about such a great win. So as we can see here, breaking this morning, I woke up this morning to this news. I was so excited to hear this. I've been following the Buffalo case since it broke. If you guys remember, I don't know if you saw the video. I blasted it all over social media, but it had to do with the health department coming into their gym during what they were holding was a protest. So a little pre-frame here, a little backstory about what happened here. Buffalo, New York gym owner had enough. Okay, he had enough, and he said, this is unconstitutional what's happening here in America, in New York State, in our little town of Buffalo. We have to stand up for our rights here. So what they did is they held a protest. They weren't having people in the gym at the time. They were holding a protest. Well, officials got a hold of the fact that they were having a little small gathering to discuss how unconstitutional the whole thing was. So the health officials came to the gym and they said, you are not allowed to be here with this many people unmasked. They said, we're having a protest. Please go away. This has nothing to do with you. Well, the health officials slapped them with a fine of $15,000 and threatened them with further fines if they opened up and didn't follow coronavirus guidelines. Well, there was no way that they were going to be able to stay in business if they followed these unconstitutional guidelines. So they had enough and they fought back and they won. They now do not have to abide by this 25% capacity limit rule. They are able to operate their gym at full 100% capacity. So as you guys can see here, breaking news last night, Buffalo gym owners win first lawsuit, further hearing set challenging Cuomo's full powers. So again, they do not need to abide by the 25% capacity law anymore. They can open fully at 100% capacity. I posted this morning, and the overwhelming support for these guys was awesome to see. Let's take a look at the keyboard warrior cam here on my own feed, and there's a lot of good news to discuss. So I wrote a little bit of backstory. Buffalo area gym owner Robbie De Niro has won the first part of his lawsuit against New York State and has received a temporary injunction. The injunction will prevent the state from enforcing the 25% capacity on his facility. They are now open at 100% capacity. Fact check it, Mark Zuckerberg. This is 100% legit, 100% true. Josh says, now to address the fact that New York State flagrantly picks and chooses which science they ignore and which they use to support their edicts. The WHO and the medical community at large does not recommend face gathering while exercising. So Josh felt the need to kind of throw that in, and it's great to see. Listen, the WHO and the CDC, no wonder we're all so frustrated. They have been contradicting themselves and flip-flopping on mask wearing, don't wear masks, and everything else under the sun. They've been encouraging us to get our kids back in school. Fauci has even said, get the kids back in school. There's nothing wrong with it. The science doesn't support that you should be keeping your kids out of school. Yet New York State, for some reason, Mayor de Blasio, Governor Cuomo, Bello, all of the health officials here in New York State seem to think they know better than Fauci. For some weird reason, they're calling the shots over the federal government. Why? I don't know. I'm not sure what their hidden agenda or what their narrative is. The WHO has said we do not support face coverings while exercising. Listen, guys, I didn't need the WHO to tell me that. And I'm not sure if you guys heard, but a few months ago in China, and I'm not sure what stance they've took since, but when face mask wearing or face coverings were required in schools with these younger children, a few kids actually died. They dropped dead in the middle of gym class. One happened, and then a few days later, another happened. And I was sitting here thinking, why are we putting face coverings on these children's faces? Why are we doing this to them? Is it really necessary while they're running around during gym class to be kind of suffocating themselves with a face mask? So I've never agreed with the whole face mask wearing thing during gym exercises, especially on little children, especially after little children have died because of it. True story, you guys can look it up. It absolutely happened. So the WHO has now said we don't support face mask wearing while gym exercising. Again, I think it's a great thing to point, and I think it's also a good thing to highlight that we are now picking and choosing what science we follow. That's why we're frustrated. That's why we continue to scream hypocrisy with the whole thing. Let's scroll down. There's a couple other comments here. I wanted to point out, Alicia says, I wish the schools would fight back. We have been fighting. New Yorkers have been fighting tooth and nail over trying to get our kids back in school. Listen, small businesses have won, or are at least starting to win. Small businesses are winning. We just saw here in Buffalo last night, they won a Supreme Court case against the state of New York. They are now allowed to open at full capacity. You better believe more businesses are going to jump on this bandwagon. But now we have so many parents in New York State saying, why can't we get our kids back in school? Why are small businesses now winning these lawsuits, yet we can't seem to get anybody to take us seriously with the schools? And I think the biggest problem that we face is that we're not just fighting the superintendents, we're not just fighting the administrators, we're actually fighting the unions as well. So the unions are the biggest problem. The unions are backing these teachers. The teachers essentially are kind of hiding behind the union in the fact that they're remaining neutral on the topic and putting all the blame on these unions. So it's a very sneaky game that a lot of these teachers are playing, because at least the ones who want nothing to do with going back. There's a lot of good teachers out there who are saying, listen, we know the science doesn't support keeping our kids out of school. We know they should be back in school. We're with you guys. We're with you 100%. And I've met a lot of these teachers out in protests or rallies or in Facebook groups that I'm in. But there's a handful, there's a lot of teachers who for whatever reason are still concerned, and that's fine. I get it. I'm not going to attack them for it. Everybody has a right to be concerned about their health, although I personally don't think the science supports it. But the bigger issue that we have are the unions. We have the unions that will not budge, and I think it's for their own financial and political gain. I don't think they are putting the interests of our children first. I think, sadly, they're putting the interests of their members first. Their members who don't necessarily have the data or the science to back up why they should, in fact, be put first. So that's the case we have. We have the issue of the unions. It's a very tricky situation. Mary says, parents are trying. It's hard to go up against the unions. There we go. We just spoke about it. It's very hard to go up against the unions. That's who we're fighting. There is an Erie Niagara group. I can send the link if you'd like. We've all know about the group. If you guys don't know about the group, you can go on my Facebook feed. I open it up for everybody to see. Please jump on these groups. Parents, teachers, whoever's watching the show. If you're frustrated and you're sick of what's going on right here in New York State as far as the education system is concerned, there's a lot of support. You have way more support than you know. There's groups called Rochester for Education Freedom. There's groups in Buffalo. There's groups everywhere. There's New York statewide parenting groups that you can join. So they need your help. If you want to fight this fight, if you want to get these kids back in school, there's plenty of groups that you can join. I wrote, it all comes down to having the right attorneys and public support behind the lawsuit. Small businesses and Buffalo have that. Rochester doesn't, sadly. The teachers' unions are also the biggest problem we face. We got to keep fighting. Alicia writes, parents are fighting, but our kids need superintendents, legislators, school unions all on board. That's exactly the case. And as I mentioned a minute ago, sadly, those are the very people that we are fighting against. Dan made a great comment. I love this comment. And this is why these small businesses are finally winning. Dan writes, he, meaning Governor Cuomo, has been illegally enforcing BS shutdowns and masks, which he passed without the legislator on executive order. It expired, but he extended it. He legally cannot enforce wearing a mask. Look at his language. He suggested, and he has turned neighbors against neighbors. He enforces it with building code inspectors harassing restaurant owners. Now, what's happened here is Governor Cuomo was not allowed to... He's abused his lockdowns after the 30-day term expired. He was only able to lock everybody down for 30 days. Okay, there's a 30-day emergency lockdown clause. Well, Governor Cuomo has abused that because he's gone over 30 days. And this is why now we have legal recourse. We have legal standing. The governors just can't lock us down because they feel like it. They have to have some sort of emergency policy to adhere to. And they've done that at first, but now the time period is up. This 30-day time period is now expired. And where they're overstepping their boundaries, where they are overreaching and abusing their powers, is that this was only supposed to be for 30 days, according to their legal terms and guidelines. So they've overstepped these boundaries. They're not supposed to be locking people down anymore. These businesses know it. Back to business as usual, people. It's as simple as that. We are not supposed to be locked down anymore. It's very simple. So you'll see more businesses now fight these governors. I think you're going to start to see this in California. I think you're going to start to see it in every other Democratic state where we've been locked down, and rightly so. I think Buffalo deserves a round of applause. I think other cities need to learn from them. Step it up, grow a pair, and start fighting back as well. When we return from this commercial break, we are going to be discussing House Dems failing to pass an additional stimulus payment with a unanimous consent. Unfortunately and sadly, Christmas is not going to be coming early for all of us who wanted that $2,000 check, but we're not going to sacrifice and put this country further into debt and put together a very, very bad deal because we want our change now. Not going to happen. We'll be right back, and I'll play a video. Make sure you guys stay tuned. We are going to play a video here of exactly why a bill has not been passed yet. and why the House Democrats have failed to pass additional stimulus. So far, no $2,000 check. We will be right back after this break.
Welcome back to You Made It Political, where the voice of the keyboard warrior is finally heard, and the arguments presented are put to the political test. And now, here's your host, Matt Clark.
So we all know about this stimulus bill that's been going around for quite a while now. They've actually been working on it since past August, July, August. There's a very good reason that it wasn't put together until just now, and a lot of us have a very sneaky suspicion that it had to do a little bit something with the fact that they didn't want President Trump to look like an American hero before the election. So Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats stalled. They had plenty of time to put this bill together. They stalled on it. They blame it on Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell and a lot of the Republicans actually were ready to put a lot of this stuff through, but they stalled. Everybody stalled for whatever reason, but it was led by Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer. The Democrats did not want this bill to come together until after the election was settled, because they knew there's no way Trump was going to sign this. He was going to come out swinging and want more for the American people. They knew 100% that there was no way that Trump was going to allow all this overspending, sending trillions of dollars, or at least billions of dollars, to overseas foreign aid. So Trump slams it down, rightly so. He says $600 is an absolute joke. I want $2,000 for every American citizen, $4,000 per couple. And if that doesn't happen, I'm vetoing it. Well, here we are a few days later. We haven't heard from either side. They took it to the House last night. The House fails to vote unanimously on it. Everybody's going home for Christmas with a fat paycheck, except for the American people. Let's watch a video on how the whole thing went down.
For more on this, let's bring in Kentucky Congressman James Comer. Congressman, thank you for coming on in the midst of breaking news, especially. We just received word, as you just heard, that House Democrats have failed to get a unanimous vote on $2,000 stimulus checks that the American people so desperately need. Nancy Pelosi obviously folding this coronavirus aid package into the spending bill. The Republicans had hoped that she wouldn't tie this down, but apparently that is the case. So what is the next step?
Well, the next step is what Leader McCarthy just tried to do. The Republicans wanted to file a unanimous